Preseason week 1 is over and we are starting to see some dominating picks across the meta. I'm going to be talking about new picks, new off-meta picks, their builds, and answering questions from my Discord server. Welcome to What's Meta. This week's question comes from Eden, and Eden asks, what is meta for bot lane? What is considered meta during bot lane is a harmony between ADCs and supports at the same time. The era of dominant attack speed ADCs is over. Because Ardent Sensor got nerfed so heavily, and Ardent Sensor supports like Sona and Janna got nerfed, we're starting to see a few more caster type AD carries and some champions who haven't been in the AD carry role for a really long time come back into the meta. The most overrated support right now would likely be Sona. When you look at a region like North America, Sona has a ridiculously high win rate even at higher ranks. But when we look at a region that's not a wildcard region like Korea, Sona is pretty much non-existent. And the reasoning for this is very simple. Even though Sona can put out a lot of damage in the early game, what Sona really boils down to is an Ardent Sensor support. In a mid-game scenario, Sona doesn't have the range to be a poke support. She also doesn't have the burst like Zyra to be a mage support. What Sona has always excelled at is as an Ardent Sensor support. But as engaged supports become more and more popular in this meta, Sona players will struggle a lot more because they're just so squishy. If there was really one king of the bot lane, it would definitely have to be Thresh. I don't think I can remember a time where Thresh wasn't considered at least decent. Since his release, Thresh has been considered pretty much a meta support in every single patch in every single season. And in Preseason 8, he is no exception. Every preseason of League of Legends has always been fast-paced. That's because the meta is not determined and people are just trying random shit and usually just building full damage, which ends up with very snowbally games. Thresh's early laning phase has always been really strong. Even as a ranged champion, he does really well in all-in situations. Right now, the strongest keystone mastery for supports would have to be Aftershock. Aftershock gives you so many resistances even early on in the game. The extra damage on top of it probably makes it the best support mastery currently in Preseason. As a result, champions like Alistar and Rakan are both very strong right now. Any support who can make easy use of Aftershock is in a pretty good spot right now. Simply put, the sheer value you get from this keystone is just better than most other keystones. One of the best new meta engaged supports that has risen in the meta would definitely have to be Leona. Ever since her big debut on the world stage by MSF Ignar, taking Fervor of Battle on Leona.
Targeting playmakers, Rakan is still available.
Yes.
So they're targeting more Ignar as a player rather than actually, the support champion. Oh my God, the Leona, this makes so much sense. Going into the Lulu, we talk about champions that can pick on Lulu in the early game. We talked about Thresh, we talked about Blitz, we did not talk about the Leona.
Shame on us.
Prepared.
They are going for Huni now, looking for the kills, looking to secure it, looking to be the first team ever to accomplish what no team has done before as they take SKT to game point.
Can you believe it, man? They pick Leona in this game. They win the bot lane. They keep creating picks. They get 2 Barons.
This season, Press the Attack is even better than Fervor of Battle. That's because Leona's Q allows her to get an easy triple proc with Press the Attack. Because it stuns the enemy champion, it pretty much guarantees that she'll get another auto attack, easily activating Press the Attack. And if your own ADC takes Press the Attack as well, which is what most ADCs are taking now anyway, you're getting 2 procs of Press the Attack on top of each other. That turns those ranged supports into basically marshmallows. They look very squishy and they melt instantly. If you're looking for great early game potential, all in, and a snowbally playstyle, there is no better support than Leona. As for AD carries themselves, the most prominent AD carry right now would still have to be Kalista. Kalista's ban rate at Worlds was a ridiculous 100%. And since Worlds hasn't really been changed much. Since Preseason is usually all about early game, Kalista's early lane dominance is pretty much one of the best in the game. And with tanky engaged supports like Alistar coming back to the front of the meta, she could potentially be even better than before. Kalista is currently the only AD carry in Korea that consistently draws bans. Now, I want to talk about something that is incredibly overrated, and that is Lethal Tempo. When Lethal Tempo was first introduced, almost everyone immediately said, wow, this is going to be so broken, how could you release something like this? But in actuality, Lethal Tempo kinda just fucking sucks. The best part about lethal tempo is that you can exceed the attack speed cap. When you hit your final form as an ADC, you'll probably do more damage than the other AD carries because you have just so much more attack speed than the other AD carry. But in preseason, again, it's just about the early game. And so a 30 to 50% attack speed buff after 1.5 seconds, it's just not really going to do much for you. And even attack speed hyper carries like Tristana and Kog'Maw take press the attack over lethal tempo because it just does more for you in the laning phase. Champions like Lucian, who we haven't seen as an AD carry for a really long time, is brought back into the bot lane because his double shot easily procs press the attack. If you are not a press the attack AD carry, you're likely just going to be a fleet footwork AD carry. Basically the same thing as Warlord's Bloodlust, but it is one of the safest keystones. Though it is not the most flashy or the most exciting like press the attack or lethal tempo, it is safe and it is consistent. Now, one very interesting pick that has surged back into the meta is Jhin. Jhin has been out of the meta for a really long time now. Since the crit DCs have pretty much taken over League in the last few months, and ever since Ardent Cancer had spread among the supports, Jhin had almost disappeared. There was a time where I would actually dodge any games where I had a Jhin on my team because he just couldn't make good use out of Ardent Censer. But now that the Ardent meta has passed, Jhin has returned. But instead of going for press the attack, lethal tempo, or fleet footwork, Jhin has decided to go into a completely different direction. Jhin players who succeed in this meta regularly take Meteor. Why Meteor on Jhin? Jhin is probably the only ADC that doesn't go in the precision tree. Here's why Jhin doesn't take advantage of the precision masteries like the other ADCs. Attack speed doesn't do as much for him since he has that 4-hit system. Lethal tempo isn't even good enough to be taken on champions like Kog'Maw, so there's no way a champion like Jhin would ever take lethal tempo. Press the attack is okay, but Jhin doesn't have auto attack resets. His abilities don't count towards press the attack, and if Jhin has less than 3 bullets, he has a harder time proccing press the attack than almost every single AD carry. And fleet footwork is pretty good on Jhin, but in many Jhin players' opinions, not good enough to take over Meteor. Here's why. If you look at a standard Jhin build, it is not like most other ADCs. It goes Yumu's, Essence Reaver, Rapid Fire, and Last Whisper. Jhin benefits a lot more from raw attack damage rather than attack speed or crit. When you choose the precision tree, you're gaining 18% attack speed, but when you go into the sorcery tree, you're getting a decent amount of AD back instead. This early game attack damage is way more valuable on Jhin than a little bit more attack speed. Not only that, Meteor is pretty easily procced on Jhin. His W roots people, which gives you almost a guaranteed Meteor hit. His bouncing grenade is really good at resetting the cooldown, and since Meteor's range is unlimited, it is one of the few keystones that actually interacts with Jin's long-range ultimate. And the best part about Jhin is that he synergizes very well with engaged supports. Your chain CC and burst with another support make you look like that you're playing an assassin bot lane rather than an actual bot lane. Now, there is one more champion I'd like to talk about in the AD carry role, and that is Ezreal. Ezreal is another one of those AD carries that have disappeared from the meta for a very long time. He shifted into the jungle, and he still is a very good jungler. But now Ezreal is arguably an even better laner. This is because of 2 reasons. First reason is Kleptomancy. Kleptomancy is the mastery that acts like Bandit, but gives you small little extra items on top of your 5 gold. Ezreal is one of the few ADCs that can consistently proc this because of his Q. Now, Kleptomancy's true value is not just in the gold, but it is also in the laning potential. If you get HP potions, biscuits, mana potions, adaptive potions, that's lane presence. That makes your laning phase a lot stronger or a lot easier. One of Ezreal's key items, Manamune, was actually buffed before the preseason even begun. On the last patch of Season 8, Ezreal was actually starting to make a little bit of a comeback. Another reason for Ezreal's popularity right now is because, again, the early game fast-paced meta. When you have assassins doing really well, naturally you're going to want an AD carry that has some self-peel. Deft, Korea's rank 1 solo queue player, when he plays Ezreal, he almost always rushes Frozen Gauntlet. Frozen Gauntlet makes it much harder to dive you, to snowball on you, and it just makes your laning phase in general a bigger pain in the ass. Sometimes he will opt straight up to just buy Frozen Gauntlet, and instead of even buying Tier as his first item, he will just get Frozen Gauntlet instead. When you have a champion that has a good laning phase that is hard to be bursted out, and who gets his power spikes earlier because he buys cheaper items like Manamune and Frozen Gauntlet, when you put a champion into a meta where the early game is everything, then of course Ezreal is going to thrive. Thanks for watching the first episode of What's Meta. If you'd like to ask a different question about the meta, you can join my Discord channel at discord.gg/donghua and leave a question in the What's Meta section. That's it. Bye.